Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, one latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. It's another Monday, and so Edwin is once again with me for another rant. Hi Edwin, how are you doing?
Doing well, Martin. It's all about savings, and being optimistic. You know, we get you and I seem to be getting told off or being rebuked on Twitter and other social media platforms, saying that we're doomsayers. So this whole episode is dedicated to optimism.
Okay, all right. What's the secret recipe for optimism other than keeping your eyes shut all the time?
Well, look, it's all about savings. Look, savings. You know, it's all about savings. And you know, Dusty, Evan, the Wechat chatterers, and we're all in this together. And I just thought I'd put a list. We'd put a list together as to the many things that we've saved on over the last 18 months. That's got to be positive, surely.
Well, absolutely. And it's interesting, there was an article in Domain today, actually, that made the point that a lot of people would have spent $30,000 plus on overseas trips. They never did. So they got all that money that they can now go and spend it on property.
Yeah, well, that's right. And look, they're for the big players. We're talking about the average Joes like you and I, Martin. Yeah, we don't have $30,000 to spend on overseas trips every year. So I thought I'd put together, the gang and I thought we'd put together a list of all the savings for the last 18 months. And here goes. Number one, the most recent one, Coles shopping down by 50%. Now, not because we want to really save on groceries, it's because we're only getting 50% of our orders, Martin.
Right, you mean they can't supply half the things you want?
Exactly. So we're figuring we're on people might think they're on a hunger strike, but we're not. It's actually forced savings by the government, I think, because there's no option, and we're all in it together. Number two, I've only had to run around and get the car washed twice in the last 18 months. So there's got to be a saving there. I was spending anything from $50 to $70 every month. So there's a saving. So I'm sure a lot of us are in the same boat. Number three, dry cleaning down to zero. I've only worn a suit once in 18 months, Martin. so my dry cleaning bill's down to zero. I've only had 2 haircuts in the last 18 months. You know, think of all the people that are working from home that they need to shave or get a haircut or get manicured and pedicured and the like. I'm not saying I get manicures or pedicures, but, I've saved a lot on haircuts, which was usually, again, once a month. In that went anything from $18 to $35, depends on which hairdressing salon you went into. Number five, we're all learning to eat off the land, Martin. As I said, because of number one, we're now forced to eat, and forced to eat off the land. We're scavenging for witchetty grubs, forest mushrooms, wild berries. Again, not because we want to, but because we're being forced to, Martin.
Should have planted those carrots, Edwin. Should have planted those carrots.
Yeah, well, we just as I said, it's the renovations that either we get those done or pay more, but it's a choice that we had to make. But then again, as I said, we're 50% on groceries can't be too bad. We can survive on 50% of the groceries we are getting delivered.
Well, I'll let you into a secret. I gave up going to the hairdresser some years ago because I'm going so thin on top that there's not much on top that needs locking about. It's just trimming around the edges, right? So I've just got one of those little hand clippers and I just do it myself from time to time. So I save myself $20 to $50 a throw without even trying.
There you go. And it's the time of the year where Dusty and Evan are shedding their fur, and sometimes I wish I was a bit more like them and just shed my hair as well. So, all that money could have saved. But then look at what's happening with the transport. The supply chains are being broken, Martin. What do you think about those videos on Twitter with regards to the shopping centres being absolutely decimated and got no stock?
Well, yes, it's not that surprising. And of course, the old posties have stopped picking up parcels for a few days in and around Sydney, right? Because they got too many at the depot. Things are falling apart. No, I'm trying to be positive. I will be positive. Gives you an opportunity to hand deliver down the road.
to hand deliver down the road, well, we can only go so far, and you can only stay within certain LGAs. Look, it's again. Look, we have been told that we're a nation that I think it's 30% or 40% of the population is obese. So look, it's a government plan way of getting making us all healthy. That's why I'm looking at it. You got to stay positive, haven't you? Because if these supply chains keep on being disrupted and goods aren't being supplied to the major shopping areas, well then again it's there you go. So it's all planned. The government planned. It's not a conspiracy. It's all planned to get us healthy and make us stronger.
Okay, well, and that presumably explains why your first video shows almost nothing on the shelves.
Well, that's right now. But on the other side of that coin, Martin, now you can also think about it. If people were thinking about buying into these high-rise developments in these build-up areas that are overpriced, now look, they're starting to look further afield. You got to start looking further afield, because there's only so much that you can grow on the balcony or in the spare bathroom. In an apartment complex, that's for sure. And Hurstville is a highly built-up area, so that I'm sure that shopping complex, is part of an essential supply to hundreds of thousands of people in that community. It's got to be painful.
Absolutely, no, that's right. And what I find interesting is that it sort of gets real, doesn't it? When suddenly you find you can't get what you normally get. And then people sort of start getting panicky and think, oh, hang on a moment. This is a real thing that's going on. It's not just on the news and it's somebody else's problem. It's my problem now.
Well, that's right. Look, but Martin, this is what we're saying. This is what we've been talking about. You and I've been talking about since early 2020 about the shifting sands of the population and what's going to be attractive, what's not going to be attractive, what's going to appeal for people. There will be a turnaround where people will eventually look back into the affordability of apartments, because they will obviously that constraint or that drip feeding of that supply chain of apartments has got to stop sometime, and you got to be hopeful that it's going to be an entry point for a lot of first-time buyers and people that are being left out and are being forgotten about, both from the rental side as well as the buying side. But right now, where we are right now, it's obviously becoming harder and harder to live in these complexes, especially with all these variants and the confined spaces and all the issues that's going on there. But these shifting sands have been moving around. We've talked about it. We've spoken how things were going to shift, how things were going to change. But most of all, we've been optimistically saying to people, be careful what you buy, so that in order that if you do buy something, that you can able to mitigate your loss if the economic bubble busts, if the property bubble busts, or if there's a turnaround with the economy, with the property market, and so forth. And has always been the key, and it's always been the key to be prepared, be watchful, as opposed to what you and I get called doomsayers on that. I think our message has been one of positive, because we've been getting people prepared. Those that have listened have gained and are prepared. And only today, a couple of our followers contacted me via phone and by a direct message and telling me everything that we've said, that we've discussed even in the last month or two, is coming to pass, and particularly with our Wechat chatterers, the information that we've been getting over the years.
Yeah, well, the Wechat chat stuff's very interesting, because one of the trends that we've been discussing previously is the interest in looking, other than in Sydney and Melbourne, but up towards Brisbane. And the Wechats are on it too.
Look, it's that's hot off the press. This is the local Wechat chatterers. They've got the eyes fixed on the sights fixed on Brisbane, but there are certain suburbs that they've identified, and for all you the followers that are in these areas, namely Kenmore, Chapel Hill, Kenmore Hill, Brookfield, Upper Brookfield, and Upper Brookfield is what we've been told by the Wechat chatter groups, investment groups, that that's where most of the money is going to. And these people are buying sight unseen, and they're buying as investments, as we've spoken about. These are people that have sold off the commercial property over the last 2 years. They've sold their businesses. They're not looking into business ventures. These are entrepreneurial WeChat chatterers that are looking at, making the money work as opposed to keeping it in the bank. So they've got their eyes sight on, on these areas, and anything. And here's another one for another tip. From the WeChat chatterers, they're saying avoid suburbs between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, particularly where there are security issues. They're not established suburbs, and there are too many renters. In other words, the ratio from renters and owner-occupier is too broad, too big to make them viable long-term. And security is going to be an issue across not only the suburbs in Brisbane, but it's going to be issues moving forward as supply chains are broken all over Australia, and let alone in Sydney. So security is going to be one of those things that people are going to be looking for, and they're going to feel a lot more secure in further afield, further out from the commercial hubs and so forth. So these are the chats that we've been sharing and helping people prepare. So there's some news for those people that Oh, and by the way, the WeChat chatterers, they're buying sight unseen up to $850,000 in this area. So basically, agents are just putting a video up, and they're literally buying sight unseen, obviously because they can't travel there as well, and that's where they're putting the money.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the net returns for investment properties up in that part of the world are way, way higher than in Sydney and Melbourne. They've been consistently that way for some time. And whilst prices are moving up slightly, they haven't moved up anything like as far as they have in some of the other places. So the dynamics are totally different, which is interesting. And, the ABS reported that the migration statistics showed net migration to Queensland away from New South Wales and Victoria, and specifically from Sydney and Melbourne. So that's a continuation of the trend.
Yeah, and they're also looking at WA in terms of lifestyle, and I get it's all about these lockdowns, what the premiers do, the paths that they choose, and it's a lot more than just economic factors. It's about lifestyle. It's about people feeling secure and safe, and also, albeit it's also partly, what they're fearful of and what they're not, and who's prepared to do what. Like I said, eventually, people are going to be looking back into the central hubs, the commercial hubs, where apartments are maybe at the moment they're not attractive, but when they start dropping in value. When the mass do come on, well, that may be a different story, and people are going to be feeling less fearful of the virus and the ongoing issues with it. But it's certainly a shifting sand, and it's becoming very it's a look and see what happens week by week, day by day, almost.
It is, and on that very note, China, of course, is going a bit the same way, right? So they've made a few different announcements in recent times, but the property sector in China looks to be under some pressure at the moment. And one of the biggest construction companies around the world, looks as though it could be teetering on the edge. And the WeChat chatters are already talking about it.
Well, that's right. Look, in one aspect of it, I guess, look, what the ABC have reported with regards to the issues there in China. Let's not, what they've said to me is basically this. Sometimes we need to take a step back and not necessarily look at the reports that are being propagated by the mainstream media here in Sydney or the rest of the world, but because they're looking at things in China with Western, as they say, with Western eyes or Westerners' eyes. We got to look at the WeChat chatterers are looking internal, what the internal sources are saying to them and are telling them, and effectively, what they're saying is that the three-horse chariot of the Chinese economy, is exports, internal consumption, and basically infrastructure, high spend on infrastructure. Two of those are absolutely decimated, which is export and to an extent internal consumption because of the issues that they're facing. But from what our reports are telling us, the Wechat chatters are telling us is that the government is pushing hard and is going to drop a lot of money and prop up a lot of the infrastructure spend in China. So although the ABC alludes to one of the factors being that the drop in iron ore demand, there's been a drop, and therefore it starts triggering all sorts of things in China. You got to look at it from what you and I have been sharing perhaps over the last 12 months or so, and that is when the Wechat chatter has started alluding to where China is going to be eventually getting the iron ore supply from, which is Africa, where they've taken control of certain mines there, and where they've had higher investment in mines over in Indonesia. So that's yes, we are going to be affected because there's going to be less demand on our iron ore export, and we will get affected. Our economy will be affected, but it's not necessarily because that the property bubble or the internal infrastructure spend is going to wane. The Wechat chatterers are telling me otherwise. It's actually they're pushing hard on that. If anything, Martin, as we've been saying, you better go and get your Christmas presents early, and also whilst you're at shopping for Christmas, start shopping for next year's Easter and all the white goods that you think and electronic goods that you think you may need, because these supply chains are going to get more and more stricter, or there's going to be less products available for us to choose from, and a lot of the packaging areas are going to be affected. So it's only a wait and see what happens with with supplies of goods and services and products here in Sydney and Australia.
Yes, and of course the iron ore price has definitely come back from its over 200 US a ton, and it's sitting around the 150, 140, 145 at the moment. But your point is dead right. They've got other supplies, right? So, and the point there is that the impact on Australia could be disproportionate to the total slowdown. In other words, the slowdown might not be that much because they'll be able to source it elsewhere. But actually, we could get caught out here in Australia because we've been so reliant on iron ore. And I think at one stage it was more than half of the total contribution of all the trade in terms of the value back to Australia. So this could be very significant, and I think that we will see more pressure in the short term. And how it plays out, who knows?
Well, that's right, and that's either way. For one reason or another, we will be affected. Our economy is going to be affected, and obviously that's also going to reflect in other parts of our lifestyle, and mainly in how we live. The rental space, the ownership with regards to property, and those that can come into the ownership of property by as the first home buyers. Who knows? It's a wait and see, and it's a process of wait and see on a week by week basis now. It's no longer quarterly. It's just a wait and see what's going to happen next week, and what catastrophe, disaster, or black swan. I think it's what do you call a whole bunch of black geese together, a flock of swans? I don't know what it is, but it's not only one now. I think when one lands, another three land alongside it.
I think it should be a discomfort of swans. But it's interesting you talk about the real time. There is quite a famous thing that the Fed in New York does called Nowcasting, right? Which is where they basically take all the current information that's coming in day by day by day, and they update their projections on the GDP, right? So it's sort of really real time, except they've turned it off. They're saying it's too difficult, right? We've got to actually stop and think about it because there are too many, data points that are actually pointing in different directions. So they've actually stopped nowcasting. So it gets to the point where the model breaks because things are happening too quick.
Well, that's right, and I guess it's similar to the hedonic daily index. When there's not, when it doesn't suit them, they just turn it off. And
look at Perth; they've turned off Perth, right?
What's that?
They've turned off Perth.
Really, they'll start switching things off. I mean, there's just not enough numbers on market to determine. I'm surprised that the auction results keep on being pumped out. with all the issues and all the things that are being happening. But one thing's for sure is that we're still somewhat only at 62, 63% of the volumes that we were last year, and it's all mainly because of the uncertainty. I talked to a lot of agents myself personally, and the extended team to talk to others, and it seems to be the same consensus. People do want to put the properties on the market, but they just don't know what's going to happen. So all this uncertainty is creating a bottleneck of listings to come on market, but yet the demand is still there. And if we move forward with this vaccine, with the mandates, or I believe we're almost at the point where the government's going to feel more confident and comfortable to open up the borders and to let it all, let us all loose into the community again, and let the international people come in. Well, right now, with the amount of listings on market, it's certainly putting a lot of pressure on people that just want to get into the arena. Unless you're looking further afield, looking closer to the central hubs, it's only becoming more and more unaffordable. And I say again, both from the rental space as well as the purchase space.
Yeah, no, that's right. And the uncertainty continues because the World Health Organization has declared that the mu variant of the virus is now of concern. And guess where that comes from? Colombia. Yeah,
I was hoping that they'd call that the enchilada personally, but they went with mu, and I was, but didn't we say that that's where it was all going to happen and continue happening? But look, it's just one of those things, Martin. It's these are government policies, whether it be state or federal. It's just going to. You just got to have your ear to the ground, and you just got to be so close to the heartbeat of what's happening with property in order to make the right decisions. Look, I'll give you an example of one of the say 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, there was a property in Baden Ridge that sold for $1,725,000. Now we were able to get the property next door for our clients for 1.6, which is 125,000 less. Now, you could say it was comparing apples with apples because one had something else that the other one didn't. So, in my view, it was like with like. But why were we able to obtain it? Because we searched and the opportunity arose and the circumstance arose. And now, how would you feel when you find out that you paid $125,000 more than your next door neighbor when both properties are registered on CoreLogic or IP Data, or when they start neighbors start talking to one another? And why? Because my view is the 1.725 mil purchase, it was impulsive. It was at the time where people began to panic, and it was ridiculously, people just started making silly offers on anything that came on. But albeit we worked with our clients, and we looked, we inspected others in the area, we looked at comparables and everything, and eventually we came to this one by our connection in the industry, because everything just fell in place. The circumstance of the vendor, the circumstance of the purchaser, everything just came together, and happy days. But this is what we talk about, and what you and I have been sharing, and the positive side of things, and that is that to make sure that if you do buy something, make sure that you buy with an upside, so that if there is a regression, if there is a downward pressure, well, you can mitigate that. Now, our clients will be able to mitigate that because they're already 125,000 ahead.
Absolutely. Well, it goes back to what we keep saying. You have to do the work. You can't just jump in with 2 feet and just assume it's going to be working right. Chances are you'll be paying over the odds. And as you say, if in fact properties do start going the other way, which is possible, who knows, then you've got less protection simply because you're already at the top of the market. So it makes a lot of sense. But it's still the same conversation that I have with people again and again. They do feel a huge pressure to get bounced into the market. They read all of the stuff on Domain and on REA and on the mainstream media about the property boom and everything's going up, and you can't lose and you might miss out. It's like, well, that's just half the story. The other half of the story is you can pay over the price. You can end up buying a property with many more defects than you think, and you can end up, frankly, by buying in at the wrong point in the market, and therefore ultimately being in a very difficult position. And that position doesn't just go away immediately. You're stuck with it for a good period of time. So it is worth doing the work, isn't it?
Well, that's right. And this is what I say over and over again. And going back to that point. Now, that someone say, oh, yeah, but that's only one example. I'll give you another example of what happened a couple of weeks ago in another part of Sydney, where another buyer's agent bought for their client a property at for $880,000. You can't do anything with the property. You're restricted with any planning or building, decent block of land that you can't use most of it. So for $880,000, and they thought they got their client a cracker of a deal. Drive 2 minutes, a bit further north of that, and we were able to land a property off market again for one of our other clients on double the amount of land, usable, and with greater potential for $800,000. Again, the circumstance there was one that dictated a great opportunity for the purchase for our client and a great opportunity for the vendor, because they were able to meet to meet each other's needs, and which worked out well. Now, when those properties get registered on RP Data, on CoreLogic, when those properties are registered and valuers look at it, well, albeit some might say the one that was purchased by the other client, by the other agent's client, that's a long-term investment. It's not an investment. It's a long-term, it's a lifestyle, blah, 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 this, whatever it may be. But what about everything else around that? Now, are the valuers going to value up to 880, or are they going to value below that and closer to where we got? Because our property is way superior. So this is what we try to get across to our clients. If you look a little bit further afield, if you look a little bit beyond, and you look for things that other people aren't looking at, and like you said, like the shiny polished up things on domain and real estate, and the pressure that the property pundits put on you, as opposed to looking at something outside of what everybody else is looking for, that's the only opportunity you're going to have to mitigate your loss. Because as you and I say, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, the day after, next week, or next month, or next year. That's going to make this whole market turn around. Is there going to be these issues that we're talking about with China and iron ore, and our China's less demand on our iron ore, and how's that going to affect the economy? Are we going to go into a recession, depression? Is it going to be a double dip recession, and so forth? And we can talk about all that, which eventually affects our income. It affects our affordability, or people's affordability to then to buy what you may have paid $1 million for, because somebody else is going to be offering you $850. All these things come into play. So the note that you and I have been trying to make for many months, for over a year, is that particularly in these times, is you've got to look for that upside, and you've got to look for that difference. You've got to perhaps shut your ears to the mainstream and start looking a little bit further afield. Start looking for everything else that others aren't looking for, in order to mitigate your any issues that may arise in the future.
Absolutely, yes. It's always the question, isn't it, of doing the work on the way in. And of course, the other unknown factor, particularly in the building and construction sector, is the impact of the virus, right? Because there was an article that came out recently highlighting the fact that a lot of construction sites are now wrestling with COVID.
Yeah, look, and although they talk about in this particular article with the Financial Review, they mention that there was a consultant on site, and the issue with these sites that they reference were the consultants. But look, here's a bit of an insight inside chatter once again from our Wechat chatters, and the experience that I've been having also with the as you know, with the work that we've been trying to get done ourselves, and not only for ourselves but also for our clients, and the issues that we've spoken about, and we've informed people to be prepared for ongoing disruptions with that, and that is with trades and their crews and what happens. So look, generally with a lot of these high-rise developments and a lot of these sites, a lot of the contractors are of Asian background, and a lot of these contractors, what you have is you have the main contractor, they call them Big Brother, and they've got the offsiders, the labourers, and the offsiders, which they call them little brothers. So typically, the offsiders and the labourers that make up the crews, they're generally people that are effectively don't have permanent residency visa or don't have even a long stay visa. They're basically working incognito. Now, for obvious reasons, they can't register with the MyGov app, and they can't register, and they can't log themselves in when they're walking in and out of these sites. Unfortunately, because of the nature of what they're trying to do and how they're trying to keep their families afloat over in China, and so these little brothers, they live together, they eat together, they sleep together in the same some confines of a makeshift granny flat / garage or a one bedroom which they share and so forth. So unfortunately, what the chatterers have been saying is that a lot of these construction sites and a lot of these issues with regards to the virus is predominantly amongst that community. But how do these poor bastards have to earn a living? They've got nothing else to go on here. They can't get Centrelink benefits. They can't get government benefits. They can't get any other benefit. Not only that, but they've still got to eat and pay for their accommodation, pay for the transport and everything else here. But also, they've got families overseas that they're trying to look after. So, and this is what's going to bring a lot of these companies unstuck. And as I said, first-hand experience is because one of the many crews that I've been looking for, because I've lost two of the jib rocking crews, which are predominantly of Asian background, is I've been looking for a small jib rocking team that can do the work efficiently and effectively because they are good jib rockers. But you know what? I'm finding it hard to get them. Why? Because they're either in an LGA that they can't travel out. They're too afraid to go beyond a certain point from Sydney. So all these issues arise. So I can only see more and more issues in costs of construction, costs of renovation, and as we said, costs of materials because of the supply chain disruptions are only just going to keep on rising.
Absolutely, and that point about the fact that a lot of those labourers aren't effectively in the official system is a very important one, right? Because my research would suggest that a lot of construction firms are totally reliant on those low-paid workers because otherwise, economically, they wouldn't be surviving in any case. Well,
that's right. I mean, when you start talking about getting jib rocking done for $45 a square meter or $50 a square meter, that's supply and install. I mean, it's only these teams that you can get them done. My only other option at the moment is looking at a crew that are looking at charging anywhere upwards of $75 per square meter, and when you're talking hundreds of square meters. Not only for as I said, to assist our clients that have already halfway through their renovations and trying to sheet things up and do a lot of that work. It's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, and it's a lot of money that has to be spent in doing renovations, doing rectification work, assisting other people do the rectification work because they didn't do the due diligence or as good at due diligence or didn't take into account what all the other concerns or issues that weren't picked up with the building and pest inspection reports that were provided by the agents and the vendors.
Absolutely. Well, as we've said before, do the work on the way in. Otherwise, you have to clear up the mess on the way out, which is never a pretty story. Now, you've been going through your archives, right? And you've got a few little shows of building issues that you've come across, which frankly were pretty scary. This, folks, is a horror movie.
And these are the better ones, Martin. Next week I'll share the ones of when I've crawled in the subfloor areas of properties again, where the issues are so obvious, but yet I'm gobsmacked to find it in the building and pest reports provided by the selling agents or the vendors. So the first video there is is of a property where they've had new floorboards laid in the property. Now, when you walk around the property, you see that obviously they're trying to spruce up the property for market. They're trying to present it as well as possible. And what a lot of people tend to do around the house is they build up the side area where generally you can't, no sunlight hits it, so you can't grow anything there. So what they end up doing is they end up concreting the sides of the homes, and sometimes in this case they also laid pavers on top of that, which has basically covered the weave hole. This is a brick veneer home. Now, what I do when I go around properties inspecting for our clients, I've got my little devices, and I've also there's the old touch and feel and see what walls are cold, because I generally, if I can see these areas and predetermine that there could be issues, in the external, parts of the building, I'm going to have issues internally. And in this case, as our viewers can see, is the moisture meter is going crazy because of the issues that I've picked up. I could feel it with my hand. Because people have this idea that bricks and cement are impermeable to water, and as a matter of fact, they're not. They absorb moisture, and when you leave it, when you've got moisture budding up or connecting with these substances, the more they're going to absorb, and eventually that moisture goes into the cavity, and then from there it just works its way up the framework or through past it and into the insides of property. So this is the first.
Yeah, and it's interesting is when I use the analogy sometimes with people of a sponge, right? You've got to think of brickwork or concrete as a sponge, right? And what that basically means is that water will rise up in the brickwork, up in the concrete work, until it either reaches a damp-proof course, right, which stops it from going higher, right? Or if it's been bridged, or if there's nowhere for the water to go, it'll go on rising. And I've seen examples, because I used to do building surveying years ago, where in fact water had come from below ground level and had gone 2 or 3 meters up the wall. So it isn't just sort of down at ground level; it can rise a long, long way.
Yeah, it'll take the path of least resistance. And all the other materials around it, it will continue to absorb. It's like osmosis. I mean, that's just the nature of water. And because these cavity areas aren't ventilated because the weep holes are blocked. They're not ventilated. They're blocked by not only the pavers around the side of the homes or along the side, but also by the garden beds that they put at the front. They build them up, and again, so this stays trapped in there. And the other issues that you may have seen yourself, Martin, is the issue where you've got water ingress from the roof space going down. So yep. It's one of these beasts. It's water's great, but only for swimming and drinking. You could drown in it, and it could also destroy your property.
Well, we had an old property years ago in Sydney, and it was an old sandstone property, right? And I did my own inspection simply because I was able to do it because I know what to look for. And I noticed that the water was coming up from the ground level, right? And the water was coming down because of a leaky roof, and it was sort of meeting in the middle. We got a whole wall of damp, cold, horrible stuff, right? And then when you actually sort of peel away the plaster, you realise that the plaster's essentially started to go. And that says big expense, because you've got to deal with the damp-proof course, you've got to deal with the ventilation, you've got to deal with the roof, you've got to deal with the drains, and then you've got remedial work to take away the rotten plaster. non-trivial. I mean, we did it because we could see that there was a huge opportunity if we did it. But a lot of people just would not understand how much time, effort, work, and cost is involved if you actually start buying a property with damp.
Yeah, it's you just start chasing your tail. Just start chasing the faults, and you start chasing the cracks in those in render. How far do you go before it stops? Before you just sort of throw your hands up in the air and just say, you know what, I just bring it all down and start these walls from scratch.
Yeah, well, of course. And it's interesting because your next video actually is a bit of a close-up of the same thing, right? It makes the point that once you've got dampness sort of running around, it can then find its way into other things, for example, into timber as well.
Yeah, and this is where direct contact in these. Now let's not forget that a lot of areas of Sydney, and in many cases you've got the eastern suburbs, the North Shore, the upper North Shore, the north, south, east, and west, where some of these properties are fetching, horrendous prices. And if you don't look at these issues closely and you don't understand what it's going to cost to rectify these, you're up for a lot of money. Now, with these ones with the next couple that I'm showing you is obviously properties with clients that we were aware of the issues. We knew what was going to happen, and but obviously not knowing that 25% extra in costs. Because when we looked at these properties, it was from 2, 3, 4 months ago, but this is the reality. Now, this is understanding the industry, knowing people in the industry, having contacts, getting teams to to work effectively, efficiently, and also on an affordable point of view. But then again, if others that they go in and pay silly dollars for properties, they pay over the odds, and then on top of that, then they get hammered by the people that they contract, because they could see that you're obviously silly for paying 2.5. Well, if you're prepared to pay 2.5 for something that's not even worth 2.5, I'm going to hammer you on something that would have otherwise cost 50,000 and charge you 150,000, because that's how naive you are. I'm sorry, but that's the approach that many take, and they fall for it and they pay it and they end up paying it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's exactly right. And I know enough to know what things should cost versus what people try to convince you that it's worth. But you make the point about termites. Termites are drawn by damp and rotting wood, right? And once they're there, they sort of spread a bit, don't they?
Oh, they go crazy. They'll start hitting. They'll go north, south, east, and west. They'll just start chasing the yummy. It's like a friend of mine, one of our become a friend of one of our clients. I sent him the video that I've sent you, and part of the video that I sent you, and he said, we helped him buy a property in the Sutherland Shire, and he said, so where do they go after after they ate all that? Where do they go? I said, they stayed here for dinner. And then they once they finished dinner, they packed up and they went to the Sutherland Shire for dessert. So you better make sure that you get your place treated ASAP. He didn't know whether to take me serious or whether I was joking. But look, it's the nature of it. This is it. This is what people are facing, and yet people are going headfirst into scenarios. Again, this is something from another client that was able to. We knew what was there. We negotiated the price down by almost $100,000. Now we're able to consult with our client and tell them that we were between 25 and 35, depending on what was to be found in that. With the ongoing issues there, but we're within the ballpark there of getting it fixed and doing a little bit more in that budget that we proposed. But because we knew it was there, because it scared the hell out of a lot of other buyers, our client was able to get a great deal. Again, this is what I talk about, the upside. Now, had it been anybody else, had it been somebody else, that could have how long is a piece of string as to what the tradespeople are going to charge them? Is it going to be the 100,000 that you thought you negotiated down to? Is it going to be 150,000? They're going to find any other issues that they're going to con you into getting rectified and done? It's as I say, how long is a piece of string, Martin? But this is where you just got to be careful. If you're not buying with an upside, you're burning money.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I always say to people is, and check the drains as well. Check where the drains go. Again, the same property that I was talking about earlier on, the drains actually ran through a neighbour's property to the mains, right? And there was a sort of an easement. But of course, the point is access, if you've got issues, is a big problem. So we negotiated the cost of replacing that drain down directly to the main sewer, and we got that knocked off the price because we argued that it was actually much more risky to buy the property with a drain that goes via a third party.
Yeah, and look, unfortunately, with the speed of what things get done now, you'd find that not often, but I have come across where conveyancers and solicitors have missed the point on those specific areas with regards to easements and what they are, and when you do further investigation, you do further research on some of these things, because they're either in new subdivisions, things don't get noted down properly. You got to ask yourself the question. You scratch your head. Is there a detention tank at the back? Where's all the drainage going to? Where's all the gutter flow going to? Where's the stormwater going to? Because it's certainly not going to the road, because the land falls to the rear, and yet, but there's nothing in the documentation. You chase council for property. You look at old plans, and you've only got to guess, and yet the people that are looking at buying, they're adamant about putting a pool in, and you sort of got to say to them, look, chances it's a 50-50 call, but it's your call. Because at the end of the day, you could, you start digging and you find all sorts of issues, and you won't get there all that, the desired outcomes that you're looking for. And I guess on that also, Martin, is what we've been just briefly touching on is the costs. The costs of not only the issues that arise over the years, but the costs of getting a lot of these properties rectified. Because when you look back in the day, when I was more on hand with with renovating and doing work to properties and flipping and doing all sorts of things in. We'd climb up 30-foot ladders without any issues. We didn't have. We got away with it, but you can't get away with that sort of shit right now. You can't. It's all about OH&S, occupational health and safety. It's all going to be issues around that, insurances, scaffolding. So when you've got in the last video I showed you there of some of the issues that again not outlined, not detailed enough, in my view, for people to make an informed decision. And obviously, building and pest inspection inspectors aren't they don't note down, they don't commit to a price to get things fixed, because they can get hammered on that if it doesn't fall within a range. So they avoid giving you a guide, but they also make it so vague. But when you start understanding, if you're going to get guttering done on two-story homes that step down, that on one end it's almost like it's a 3-level home because of the drop of the land, and it's not just a matter of climbing on the roof and getting things changed. It's about ordering the scaffold, the scaffold or the cherry picker, and that is going to cost you more than the labour is going to cost with regards to getting the issue fixed.
Absolutely. And once you actually have access problems, and then you have the need to be able to have sufficient people, because if you've got access, you need to have control. I mean, it gets out of hand very, very quickly. And so often people get caught because they don't do the work up front, right? So again, it's always much more difficult to try and deal with it after the fact Whereas if you do the due diligence on the way in and you've got a really good idea of precisely what needs to be done and what those cost ranges could be, that gives you a much stronger position to be able to negotiate. And if you negotiate right, then you've got the freedom to be able to tackle these issues without ultimately being taken to the cleaners. But again, I see so often people don't do the work. They assume everything's fine. They take as gospel the very high-level survey provided by the vendor as though this is some magic solution, right? Has no force in law at all, really. And the fact is that you can easily get caught out, and then you're running backwards from that point, trying to fix up issues and trying to deal with all the costs and everything else. It can be an absolute nightmare, and it can take years and years and years to fix, and you can end up paying a lot more than you ever thought you would.
That's right. All the worst case scenario is that you end up living in an environment where it's absolutely hazardous to the health of the young ones as the little lungs are developing. And people don't understand how much of an issue the mold and all the toxins that rise from that are to these developing youngsters, let alone the older generation with they may have underlying issues as well. So it's just ongoing, Martin. But unfortunately, the nature of where we are right now and the nature of where the pressure that people seem to think they're under, as opposed to making an informed decision, they just get pushed and they just get corralled. And as I said in a previous chats, for the selling agent saying you got 10 minutes, you got to be in and out, and you're supposed to make an informed decision. I mean, this is crazy shit. And you ask for a lot longer period of time in order to go through things thoroughly. They go, the most we'll give you is 12 minutes or 15 minutes if nobody else turns up. And then you've got to start changing things of how you inspect property, how you do things, when, what time. You try to try and maximize the time there. And you've got no, as I say, but then again, it's just something that I've done all the time anyway. It's not relied on their reports. It's relied on our own expertise, as well as getting other professionals that work for us, not for the vendor or the selling agent. Look, I don't have it on hand, but I have it from a very, very reliable source. I can't show it to you. It's anecdotal, but I know of an agent in the Windsor area where they've adamantly told one of the building inspectors that we use, they've told them to basically close an eye to a lot of the major issues in the properties that they've inspected there, to the point where he said, you know what, don't call me, lose my number. I mean, you just can't do that sort of shit, but they do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the other point to make is that some of the building inspections that are done, if you read the small print, they're actually not worth the paper they're written on, right? Because there are so many ifs and outs, and well, we couldn't go there, couldn't see this, etc., right? So again, even if you get a report from somebody, that is not necessarily sufficient to be able to actually, for peace of mind, to know that it's actually really appropriate and everything is actually as it should be. It really is important to do the work, take the time, and frankly, if you're being bounced by an agent, I just walk away, because the chances are there's a reason why they're bouncing, and it may be something to do with the fact that they hope you don't find what there is there to find.
Yeah, look, and if, as you say, if you are going to be bounced, look, obviously say, look, this is my offer, but I want my own professional here. I want my own to go through it, and they can't stop you from getting that. I haven't had anybody say no so far. I've had issues in obtaining access. I've had issues in getting our building and pest inspectors to go through property timely, because obviously there's been others on looking at the property as well. So we've had to get things done quickly. But look, I dare say if somebody says no, well then you definitely if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's it can't be anything else than a goose.
Or a swan. Yeah, and it is very interesting. I mean, this is a really, really important conversation, and particularly as we've said, where people perhaps get bounced into things, and so often people end up getting tripped over because they don't do the work, they don't think it through appropriately, and they don't get the best advice at the right point in the cycle. and then you're always on the back foot. Edwin, it's been a really, really important conversation today. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to some more home movies in future shows, because I think it really brings it out.
Yeah, as I said, next time around we'll do subfloor areas where you could go white water rafting under the in the subfloor areas, and then my other favourite is obviously the roof cavity areas where you find all sorts of interesting stuff up there. But yeah, look, they are interesting. And the tip for the week, Martin, look both ways before you cross the road.
Oh, very good. Well, I was going to give you a tip, not really for Australia, but in the UK, right? In the UK, there's something called a Deathwatch beetle, right? Which is a lot bigger than, a normal worm that chews through timber. It has a much larger diameter, right? But the beauty of it is it ticks, right? And so if you are looking at an older property in the UK, it's worth listening for the Deathwatch beetle, because you're going to hear going tick, 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 tick as it chews. So there you go. Completely useless bit of advice for Australia, because I don't think they exist here. But in the UK, it's hilarious. And I remember inspecting an old vicarage years ago, went down into the basement, and you could see where all of the major beams had been completely chewed away by the Deathwatch beetle, and effectively there were no beams, right? The floor was actually just hanging free. So
just say, you know what's interesting, Martin? I know it might sound a bit like, whoa, who's got behind me? That's Dusty. Wants to say hello. One of the things that it's rather interesting. Look, where people before we had this this whole mask mandate thing. You could walk into a place and you could smell the mold and the build up, the mildew in the property. But now you walk through homes, and you're obviously you can't really pick that up. Okay, I'm going to confess. I sort of sneakily take my mask off as well. But then again, I know what I'm looking for as well. But and then when I'm looking at the subfloor structure, I get the feel of what's going up there anyway. But that's just a bit trivial, just a bit of interesting, because people, and now I've noticed there's a lot more candles burning in properties. If you see candles burning in a property, you got to ask yourself, what are they trying to mask?
It's either drains or damp, in my experience, or both. Edwin, great to talk. Thank you so much. Look forward to doing the same again next week.
Likewise, Martin. All the best.
See ya. Bye-bye.